for another edition of In the Huddle. Carl Dukes, put him up, along with my man Jason Canfora. Baldy, a part of this podcast as we speak. We know he's in Brazil.
Brazil.
Here's the deal, guys. It is week one, and we want to focus on what's going to happen on Sunday. We talked, earlier in the week about tonight. Obviously, we're recording this on Thursday. Tonight, the NFL opens up Kansas City at home against the Ravens. We talked about Friday night, what's going to go down in Brazil. But let's talk about Sunday. 1 o'clock window. There is a game that I think a lot of people are interested in for various reasons. Steelers at Falcons. Falcons have completely, kind of redone their roster. They went out and picked up Matthew Judon and Justin Simmons on the defensive side. But more importantly, they paid Kirk Cousins $100 million, Jason, to come in here. And then they drafted Michael Penix. And people were freaking out. So now we get a chance to see what this offense is going to look like. And then on the Steelers side, obviously the decision to go with Russell Wilson, again, I'm not sure if that's the right move. We'll see. But people are curious to see if what's going to happen with this Steeler offense, which, by the way, last year I was looking at this. They ranked points scored. The Steelers were 28th. The Falcons were 26th. So that was a terrible offense last year, and we know they got a new offensive coordinator in Arthur Smith. What are you looking at? By the way, spread is 3. Atlanta at home. They are favored to win this game. There's just a lot of intriguing things with this game, Jason.
Yeah, look, I think the Russell Wilson thing comes down to what he's done in the past, right? Not what he did in the summer. Like, you could make the argument that the offense looked at least incrementally more interesting with Justin Fields at the helm, and Justin Fields has a way higher ceiling than Russell Wilson, but Russell's floor is higher than Fields. And, I mean, Russell doesn't want to push the ball down the field anymore. I've talked to a lot of scouts about the Steelers, like, they kind of think Russ is done on a lot of levels because he doesn't want to activate his legs and he doesn't want to push the ball downfield. But he also doesn't want to turn the ball over. And 26 touchdowns, 8 picks last year with Denver, like those are the kind of numbers Justin Fields, frankly, hasn't put up. And I was talking to somebody in the organization about it, and they're like, go look at Russell Wilson in the pocket versus Justin Fields. And lo and behold, Carl, do you know who the number one ranked NFL passer was last year? When pressured, under pressure, in the pocket.
No. Who?
It was Russell Wilson with a 111.1 rating. Justin Fields had a rating of 78. The league average is 72.1. So I think they're looking at that and saying, hey, we're probably still going to have to win ugly here. Like, there's going to be a time and place for Justin Fields. And I think eventually Justin Fields is going to take over. But Russell Wilson, when things get funky in the pocket, he's not going to run and extend the play like Fields can, but he's probably not going to totally bleep it up either. So I think that's what's carrying the day right now. I do like this game. I'm on this game. I was on this game as an under at 41.5. It's now at 42. I think there's strong trends to the under here, Carl. Pittsburgh was 11-7 to the under last year. Atlanta 10-7 to the under. I get that Atlanta's got a better quarterback and all that stuff, but it's a first-time offensive coordinator, right? It's the first time they're putting this thing together. Like Pittsburgh 6-3 to the under on the road last year. Mike Tomlin has had tremendous success against this family tree. If you go back and watch Tomlin versus McVay, Tomlin versus LaFleur, yep. Tomlin versus Zach Taylor. He hasn't faced Kevin O'Connell yet. But if you look at that McVay family tree, Mike Tomlin is 9-5 against those guys. Carl, he allows 19 points per game, his defense, to those guys. 27 takeaways in those 14 games. 319 total yards per game. 93 quarterback hits. All those great quarterbacks, right? We're talking Stafford. We're talking Joe Burrow, right? We're talking Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love. 59% completion percentage. 78.2 quarterback rating, that family tree of coaches and their offensive schemes have against Mike Tomlin. I think this game's probably played in the teens. Kirk Cousins coming off a long-term injury. How much do they ask of him, right? I think we got a defensive-minded head coach in Atlanta, Raheem Morris. Hey, let's keep this thing close. Let's give ourselves a chance to win. Let's not undermine it. Pitts, is he anywhere near 100%? Does it sound like it? I think this is going to be a little bit of a throwback, ugly football game.
I'm with you. And the crazy thing is, both of these teams are clamoring for explosive plays. I've been saying this all week, Jason. We're talking about Atlanta Steelers. on Sunday, 1 o'clock window in Atlanta. The Steelers receivers don't scare me. Van Jefferson, they got one guy in Pickens that should be a legitimate star in this league, but the delivery system has been crap with Kenny Pickett, who's not there anymore, and now we'll see what these quarterbacks do. But I'm with you. Offensively, I do think this is going to be a struggle. And the Steelers, listen, they signed Cam Hayward this week, right? He's happy now. He got his new deal.
Yeah.
TJ Watt led the league in sacks with 19 last year. I've already said he'll have 20 or more this year. He's just a dude. They have, with Mika Fitzpatrick, they've got a quality defense, man. That's a Super Bowl caliber defense. So to your point, it is going to be a struggle, and whomever gets in the red zone and is able to score touchdowns, I think wins this game. Field goals, maybe. But I think that like two touchdowns in the red zone may be enough to win this football game for either team. Here's the other thing I'll mention. You talked about, the pressure with Russ. The two most sacked quarterbacks since 2021, guys. The two most sacked, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson. So there is a knack that either they're holding on to the ball too long or Russell doesn't have his escapability that he once had. Yeah. And that is something the Falcons have looked at this week and said, we think we can get after him a little bit and maybe pressure him, and maybe he'll make a mistake or two. So it's going to be interesting. But, Jason, I'm with you. I like the under as well. I'm looking at 42.5 now, as you can see on the screen. Yeah. What's that, 2017 maybe?
Huh? 1916? I don't know. From week 10 on, Carl, from week 10 on of last year, on a percentage basis, percentage of offensive plays running the ball, nobody ran the ball more than the Pittsburgh Steelers. Buffalo was second. I don't think that's changing because the coordinator changed. I think this team's been built a certain way. And now there's questions about the offensive line and pass protection, right? And how banged up is Broderick Jones? They're one of their starting guards is not going to play in this game. I think it's a keep it simple, stupid offensive philosophy for the Steelers in this one.
For Arthur Smith. I totally agree with you on that. It's In the Huddle, guys. Follow us in the Huddle Pod. Watch us on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast as we talk ball each and every week. We put out new episodes. If there's breaking news or something happens, we'll definitely be all over it. Let's talk about the Tennessee Titans at the Chicago Bears. Jason, I watched Hard Knocks just because what I do, right? Every year I find myself watching it. And I think it was episode 3 maybe, or maybe it was 2 where they played their preseason game. And, Caleb Williams was like, I don't get nervous. Okay, player, I want to see this week. Week 1 in the National Football League. This one counts. I want to see. Bears look good offensively. They paid DJ Moore. I like what I see on paper. I just don't know if it's going to transcend onto the field and mean something for the Bears. The irony for me is Bears are at home. They're a 4-point favorite over the Tennessee Titans, who I think could be an interesting team in their division this year. Tell me what you're thinking about the Bears. Over under is 45.5, guys, 44. I do like the Bears at home, but I don't know if they cover, Jason. Tell me what you got.
Yeah, that 4.5 is a big number for me. I can't get there. I think the Bears are the better team, but the closer we've gotten to the regular season and the more work I've done on the Titans, the less inclined I am to sort of completely push them to the side as I probably would have been 2 or 3 months ago. I think they've done a pretty good job on the personnel side. I'm a big believer in Denard Wilson, their new defensive coordinator. I think Denard Wilson's a future head coach in this league. I think Denard Wilson has superstar potential. And I think he's got some interesting pieces to play with there. I think this is going to be a little bit of an ugly throwback football game. Nerves with Caleb Williams. I mean, he's a human being. This is uncharted territory. There's going to be some, whether you want to call it uncomfortability or a feeling out process, it is going to be different. The speed of this, the strength of these guys he's up against. Watching a guy like Simmons push the pocket, he's never I'm sorry, you've never seen that before in your life. You not up close, not from the pocket, not from 3 feet behind center. So I think that will be different for him. I think it's a close football game. I think the Titans can muddy this up. I'm not a Will Levis guy. Now, there was a point in time where I wasn't a Jordan Love guy either, and I don't know that. I think Jordan Love's going to be the MVP of this league, so I'm willing to admit when I was wrong. I'm not there on Levis, and I think this game might swing on Levis trying to do too much and what is a game that is more sort of incremental. Does he push a ball where he shouldn't and it gets picked off? But like I think both these teams can play defense. Chicago from about week 8 on played playoff defense. Like I don't think that's going away. Like the average Chicago Bears home game last year averaged 38.6 points, third fewest in the NFL. The average Tennessee Titans road game last year averaged 40.44 points, 23rd in the NFL. Like, I'm under on this game. Like, I think this is, 20-17. Like, I don't know that this game gets north of 40, let alone pushes 45. Like, I'm going to keep an eye on this. Like, at kickoff, is there even more Caleb Williams hype? And does a lot of money come in on the Bears? Or really just, I'm saying, I shouldn't say money, but a lot of volume from the average bettor coming in on the Bears, not necessarily sharp money. And this thing gets even higher. But I think Tennessee defensively is going to be a handful for people. I think they're going to be very multiple in terms of what they throw at you and the looks and I think they're going to be able to get after the quarterback a little bit. So, interesting game. I think Caleb Williams props are around 240 passing yards. I think he probably has to go a little bit over that because I think they're going to have trouble running the ball in Tennessee. And I think he probably does go over that. And I think he probably wins this game, maybe even in an interesting fashion. Late, last minute drive for a field goal or something like that. I don't know about a touchdown. But I'm as interested to see Caleb Williams as anybody in the league this week.
I am too. And the crazy thing is, you talk about Will Levis. So my daughter's at Kentucky. Last year of college, I may have told this story. Last year he's there. We go up for a couple of games. One of the games was Georgia. It was a tight game. Kentucky couldn't score, And ironically, Liam Cohen, I believe it is he's now in the football league. He was the offensive coordinator. And, I had a chance to visit with those guys prior to the game that week. And he was just saying, he was saying then Levis's ability to process and all this. That's why all these NFL teams were loving him. But then I walked up on him, Jason. He's a big dude, right? He's and so he's got a killer cannon arm and all this stuff. He goes to the league, and here's the point I'm getting to. All offseason I heard he worked on his delivery and footwork. So we're going to see if all of that pays off because he was obsessed with making sure he got rid of the football when he needed to and his footwork was right. I think there's a lot of upside to Will, but I'm kind of with you right now. I mean, like, the first game he plays, he throws 4 touchdowns against the Falcons last year, and it was like, oh, here he comes. And then he settled down, and things kind of, got back to normal. I'm not on board completely to tell you that the 6'4", 230-pound QB is going to be, an MVP like Jordan Love. I agree with you. But there's promise. So I want to see where he goes in this first game. I do like Chicago. I'm with you. I don't think they cover, but I do think they win the game. And so I'm curious to see where Caleb Williams goes, guys. And again, Jason and I, Baldy, we've talked about this. If he comes anywhere close to what C.J. Stroud did last year, he's the real deal. Okay? That if he comes anywhere close to that. If he doesn't, there are going to be questions, Jason, because that is now the standard as a rookie QB coming in and saying, if you're that guy, this is what you have to do, right?
Yeah, and I don't think that's necessarily fair.
I don't either.
But you're right, recency bias, and we have seen quarterbacks, take this league by storm. We've also seen a whole lot of them fail. But yeah, we don't talk about the averages that much this time of year. It's go time, and I think this young man will be just fine, and I think this young man's going to help them win more games than they're used to winning. And I think the Bears will be alive for a playoff spot, beyond Christmas. Whether they bring it home or not probably will depend on their health, probably will depend on that offensive staff a little bit as well. But this is not your normal 1-1 situation, right? I mean, remember, they got the 1-1 not because they were the worst team in football, because they made a really shrewd trade 9 months prior that allowed them to get Carolina's pick. So this is not what Bryce Young was walking into as the 1-1 a year ago. This is much more conducive to immediate success.
All right. The Bengals are at home against the Patriots. I do not believe the Patriots are going to be a good team this year. Okay, they don't have a lot of talent. The coach and Gerard Mayo has basically chosen, Jacoby Brissett over Drake May and said, hey, he gives us the best chance to win. But my thing is this. Are the Bengals focused? You had T. Higgins earlier in the offseason, right, tripping about the contract, and I get it. Now you've got Jamar Chase, who allegedly yesterday, as early as yesterday, was back at practice. And I'm guessing, Jason, I don't know what you're hearing, that I'm guessing he's going to be ready on Sunday. But this has kind of been an ongoing thing. And they have come out, ownership, and said they were not going to pay Jamar Chase this season. I don't know if that's a motivating factor or not, or if that's a distraction. Cincinnati, an 8.5-point favorite. Over-under is 40.5. Obviously, I like the Bengals to win, but I just don't know about this whole Jamar Chase situation and how that's going to work throughout the course of the season.
Yeah, look, I think Jamar Chase is going to get his bag. I can't tell you exactly when, but
and by the way, is it a CeeDee Lamb bag? Is that the bag we're talking about?
No, it's a Justin Jefferson bag. It's a Justin Jefferson bag. It's the full bag. I think the problem for Mike Brown is the years. Like I think he understands he's got a best of breed receiver, and the quarterback loves him, and it's $35+ million a year. I think the problem is Mike Brown is old school, and when he gives a guy that kind of money, he expects to control him contractually for 6 years, and that no one talks about the years, but the years. 6 years, you're back to the table in 3 or 4. 4 years, you're back to the table in 2 years, 2.5 years to start talking, taco again. I think that's where he can't sort of, well, if I give you, that kind of guarantee, then I don't want to have you in my pocket again for 4 or 5 years. And that's not the way it's working for the quarterback and the wide receiver position these days. But I think he'll get there. Look, I think Cincinnati might be the best team in the AFC. I think New England is the worst team in the AFC. I don't know what New England's going to be particularly good at doing this year. I just don't. Jacoby Brissett can push the ball down the field, but I don't think Lou Anarumo is going to let that happen. I just think if you want to run Ramondre Stevenson 35 times, even though you're down 28-3, knock yourself. You know what I mean? We'll give it to you. We'll give it to you between the tackles. And then we'll button down in the red zone. I just think Cincinnati's going to come out guns a-blazing. This is the healthiest Joe Burrow's been in this early in September in a long time. It sounds like Jamar Chase is playing in this game. If you told me New England had Christian Barmore and they had Matt Judon, I might be like, maybe they keep it interesting for a while. Maybe they get after him a little bit. This is, another reshuffled Bengals offensive line. I think it's going to be the best offensive line that Burrow's ever played behind. I don't know, man, especially with this being under 9. I like Cincinnati here. Cincinnati Bengals are 30-19-1 against the spread the last 3 years. That is best of any AFC team and third best in football. And we know what the Bengals are going to do, right? They're going to spread you out. They're going to be in 11 personnel 80-85% of the time. They're going to be in shotgun 80-85% of the time. They're not afraid to go empty. New England last year, 29th in the league in touchdown to interception ratio against 11 personnel at a shotgun. I think Joe Burrow is going to be able to find multiple favorable matchups. I think they'll come out playing at a high pace, knowing if we get up 17-0 on these guys, it's probably lights out. And I just don't think New England has the talent to even backdoor cover if New England is down by 17 or more at the half. I think they probably will be. Playing Cincinnati in the first half, I'm right there with you. I think Joe Burrow coming off an injury, Joe Burrow, the stone cold assassin that he is,
motivated.
I think he's going to be out to send a little message here, and the message isn't that 75-80% is enough. It's here's what 100% Cincinnati Bengals offense looks like this year.
Yeah, Zach Moss is the new running back there. Obviously, Chase Brown. People have asked the question, are they going to be able to run the ball effectively? Yes. I feel pretty good about what I've seen from Zach Moss and Chase. I don't think that's going to be as big of a problem as some people are pointing that out to be. And then, Jason, here's the other thing. To your point about their defense, it's kind of underrated, man. I mean, Trey Hendrickson's a dude. He's one of the sack leaders year in and year out. Rankins, B.J. Hill, Sam Hubbard. They got guys on that front seven. Their linebackers are good. I mean, like, I think it's one of those deals.
Logan Wilson's a stud. Yeah, I mean, like, have they fixed the safety position? I think they fixed the safety position. Like, can Dax Hill help them as a corner more than he was as a safety? Like, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. Look, corner is the one area that I'm worried about, but I also think Lou Anarumo can scheme up his zone stuff enough that they take away big plays and force you to run a lot of volume in your offense and think eventually we'll get a sack or a turnover. And like New England scored on 20% of their drives last year. Like, I'm not talking about scored touchdowns. I'm talking about scored points, period. Like 80% of New England's offensive drives last year resulted in nada, zilch. Like, is Jacoby Brissett an upgrade? Yeah. But the cast around him, and it might be the worst offensive line in football. Like,
they're not going to be good. They're not going to be good, bro. We can say it. They're just not. I mean, and that's the other reason why they traded Judon. They know this is a rebuild. They weren't going to pay him. It's a rebuild. All right, that's going to be a game. I'm all on the Bengals. So you got them covering the 8.5 or first half?
I do.
Covering the 8.5.
I like both. I like both.
Yeah.
You know, I honestly played it at 9. I played it at 9 and probably played it too soon because it was before things got wishy-washy with Jamar Chase. And then it came back to 8.5. I don't think that 8.5 is going to be around by the weekend. So if you're inclined, I would pick it up now.
I'm with you. It is in the huddle, guys. Carl Dukes, put him up. Jason Lock-on forward. Brian Baldinger, part of this podcast as well. Baldy, as we said, in Brazil, and he'll be back next week as we'll start to break down what's going to happen coming off Monday Night Football and also getting into week 2. But week 1 is here. All right. The Jags paid Trevor Lawrence. First and foremost, first question. He wasn't deserving of the deal, right? But they had to.
Right.
Come on. Huh?
They had to because they took him 1-1, probably. Like, they had to because the owner is not going to admit that maybe he's not who we drafted him to be. Like, so,
how much
like, if the owner's, I'm sorry,
Doug Peterson. How much do you put on him with the quarterback stuff?
I put it on. I mean, we can put it on everybody. I mean, what percent? Look. He was supposed to be a franchise changer the moment he gets in your building. That hasn't happened. I put most of it on the owner because the first year was a complete sunk cost with a I'm just going to say it, a total jackass football coach. Like, he might not be a total jackass human being. He might be, I don't know, it depends who you talk to. But he was a total jackass football coach. He had no business. He had no business being around an NFL team, period. Like, not as the water boy, let alone as the head coach. Like, all he did is set you back. So I put it mostly on the owner, and I'm going to put this contract on the owner because, like, if the owner wants him around for another 5 years, then if you're a facilitator as a contract negotiator, as a cap guy, as a GM, then you've got to pay the freight. If you're representing Trevor Lawrence and Tua is getting paid and everybody's getting paid and a rising tide lifts all boats, then why am I not going to get what those guys got? So it's the timing is everything. So if the mandate is he's our guy, then you got to pay what it takes to keep him in the building. Doesn't mean it's the right move. He's got to throw a whole lot more touchdown passes than he has to this point in his career. Like, Miami has one of the best early season home field advantages in the NFL, and I don't think it's talked about enough. Like, when it's swampy down there early in the year and you're just trying to get your sea legs under, nobody plays in the preseason anymore, right? So the first team defense is never as conditioned as they'd normally be. Back in the day when they were playing 6 preseason games, 4 preseason games, and starters were involved in all of them. So people aren't truly in football shape. It's harder to play defense than offense because you're reacting rather than dictating. And then you're going down there and it's 90-some degrees and it's sticky and there might be thunderstorms and there might be delays. It's just weird. I mean, there's a reason why Miami, right, through 6 weeks every year, we're looking at all the offensive metrics saying it's the greatest thing we've ever seen on grass, ever. Like, this isn't turf. It's not a dome. They're playing outside on grass, and they're destroying people and scoring 40 points a game. And then the weather turns, and then the home field isn't as extreme, and they fade. But this time of year, I'm a Miami Dolphins backer. Like, Carl, these are some numbers for you here.
All right.
The last 2 years, Miami Dolphins have played 12 games where it's 80 degrees or hotter. They're 10-2 against the spread in those games. They've scored a touchdown on 36% of their drives in those games. We're talking 136 drives. They got a 36% TD rate in those games. They average 33 points in those games. They average 7 yards a play in those games. Miami Dolphins game totals when it's 80 or hotter, 53.25 points per game. Tua Tagovailoa when it's 80 degrees or hotter is 11-0. 116.2 passer rating, 70.4% completions, 29 touchdowns to 7 picks, 319 yards per game. Tyreek Hill as a Miami Dolphin, when it's 80 degrees or hotter, he's played in 12 games, 11 of them with Tua. Carl, 12 games, 96 catches, 1,597 yards, and 10 touchdowns. 96 catches on 128 targets in 12 games as a Miami Dolphin when it's 80 degrees or more. So where do you think I'm going in this one?
I hear you.
If you want to just take the over for the game because you don't buy Miami's defense and Trevor Lawrence will do some stuff, I'm with you. You want to take Miami over their team total of 26.5? Oh, I'm way with you. I'm playing it in alternate markets over 29.5. You want to put a little parlay together around Tyreek and Tua yards? Like Mike McDaniel knows what he has to do this time of year. They throw to set up the run. They send the full track squad out there, bombs away. Can you keep up? And you probably can't. And you might tell me, well, Jacksonville's a Florida-based team. How do they do when it's hot? Jacksonville the last 2 years is 2-3 against the spread when it's 80 degrees or hotter. Like, I just think this is when Miami gets fat. This is when they feast. You're out of breath midway through the second quarter, and they're just hitting stride. I don't buy the Dolphins long term. They're not a playoff team for me. They're going to have to get healthy on defense. They're going to have to see Phillips and these guys playing like they did before they got hurt. But I think they'll play a bunch of over games like in the meantime. And you know, I'm on the over here. Miami games weeks 1 through 6 the last 2 years average 51.17 points.
And their run game's pretty damn good too, with Mostert and A-Shane, right? I mean,
and it's not just it's an explosive run game. I mean, it's Mostert scoring from 20 plus yards out. Like it's explosion run plays. It's not 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
The numbers are very interesting because it's the complete opposite when the temp is below 40 degrees for Tua. We've seen that in the playoffs. Right. We saw it last year in Kansas City. So those numbers with 80 degrees, and oh, by the way, if you're not following our drift, it'll be over 80 degrees on Sunday. That is very interesting. As far as, you know, the hype surrounding the Dolphins, look, they paid everybody. They took care of Tua. They took care of Waddle. Hell, Tyreek got a bump, just because. So the pressure for me is all on Miami this season to say, hey, we can live up to it. And, you know, everybody lost their blank last year when they scored 70 against the Broncos. And it was like, oh, my God. And, you know, I'm not ready to say this is the most prolific offense or, you know, greatest show on turf or grass for that matter. But I do agree with you in this game as far as the makeup of their offense and what the numbers tell you. Guys, you see it 3.5, over-under is 48.5. I do like the Dolphins at home, but I do think Trevor Lawrence is going to be better this year. The kid's from Cartersville, Georgia, Jason, he's here. I mean, his family's here. A lot of people said that are close to him that he just was not healthy at the end of the year and that he's healthy now.
I believe that, yeah.
And so for that, just that part of it, not talking about the play calling and who's catching the ball for him, he should be a better quarterback, at least to start the season because, in fact, he is healthy. All right, guys, we're taking a look at all the games or the ones that are interesting us, should I say. Not all the games because there are some games we won't get to just from a time standpoint. But this Browns-Cowboy game, Tom Brady's calling his first game on Fox. This is the one.
Yeah.
So that in itself is intriguing. Outside of the game and what's going to happen. Dak did not get his bag. Dak's not going to get his bag. CeeDee Lamb did. The Browns, we've not seen Deshaun Watson at all. We have no idea what the situation or how healthy he is, or we're assuming he'll be 100%. Browns at home, 2.5-point favorite. Over-under's 40.5. My concern with the Cowboys is I think this defense is going to take a step back, Jason. I don't think they're going to be as dominant in the turnover game as they were when Dan Quinn was there for the last 3 years in turnover, ratio. But the Browns defense is really damn good. And so look at this over-under, 40.5. That's low.
Hey, Carl, it opened the week at 43. So I mean, that's telling. And I'm not on this game. I thought about getting on the under at 43. I didn't do it. I'm not going to get on it now. But I think that's indicative of the kind of ball game it's going to be. Like Dallas scored 37 a game at home last year. They scored 23 a game on the road. Like Cleveland's defense, the home road splits were like
insane.
Frankenstein stuff. I mean, they weren't even the same team. Like they were the worst road defense in the NFL, and they might have been one of the best home defenses in NFL history. This game's being played at home. Like Cleveland at home last year allowed 13.9 points per game. Like they allowed 3.7 yards per play. Next closest in the NFL was 4.5. Like 4.0 net yards per passing attempt at home against the Browns last year. Like, are the Cowboys built for that? I don't think so.
No.
But on the other side, and I'm with you, I think Dallas's defense is not going to set the world on fire like it did the first 6 or 7 weeks last year, and they play a tougher schedule. But like Deshaun Watson has played 11 full football games, like he's finished and started 11 games with the Cleveland Browns. They have 20 offensive touchdowns in those 11 games. Joe Flacco's not walking back through that door. Oh, and Jedrick Wills is telling everybody, like, I don't know if they think I'm playing in this game, but I'm definitely not starting. Like, I'm definitely still banged up. And the offensive line is banged up. And Nick Chubb is starting the year on PUP. Like, I think it's probably an ugly game. Like, Cleveland's a physical football team. Dallas is not made to match up with the AFC North. Like, that's the division they probably match up with least. Like, but I can't get on the Browns even covering 2.5 because I don't buy the quarterback at all. Like, I think the quarterback holds them back. Like, so I don't know. Like, if you do still want to go under, like, I get it. I'm off this game. I think Cleveland at home is probably the better team, but there's a lot of pressure on Deshaun Watson. And, like, he has a bad first half and he's coming out of the tunnel at halftime. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to see Jameis Winston. Give me Jameis Winston. Like, let me see famous Jameis. Because you know what he'll do? He'll air it out like Flacco did. And when did this thing take off? When did it finally look real? When you had a quarterback who didn't give an F, airing it out. Go make a play, Njoku. Go make a play, Amari Cooper. Like,
yep.
So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting game. Yeah, I mean, Dak, 120 QB rating at home last year. On the road, 92.4.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
309 passing yards per game at home. 227 on the road.
Well, and Jason, listen, we know this, law of averages. I mean, I'm not telling you the Cowboys won't win 10 games. But 12 last 3 years, and you haven't been able to get over the hump, guys, things come back down to earth. At some point, it's going to even out. And
regression is real.
It's real. And I also think facing Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith, that ain't no joke. Like, They're going to be able to get after him. I like their secondary. I like the Browns' defense, period. I just think they're good.
And Jim Schwartz is blitzing more now than he ever has in his career. Like, that's been the knock on him while he gets a little vanilla at times. Well, not last year.
So, I think the Cowboys go on the road. I think they lose the game. I'm totally with you about Deshaun. I've been riding this wave of what the hell are we going to get with Deshaun? Because here's the deal, Jason. It's week 1. We get to week 12, and we're still having this conversation about Deshaun Watson. This trade is a bust. It is a complete failure and one of the worst deals in the history of the National Football League, if not the worst, because of the guaranteed money.
I'm with you. I think we'll know way before week 12, brother, because I don't think Stefanski, like at some point, Stefanski's got to advocate for himself and just say,
Can you
hey,
imagine?
Jimmy, hey, boss man, I know you love him and you paid him, but with this defense, we got a chance with Jameis. Like if I can just coax a fewer jump balls out of Jameis, we got a chance.
Can you imagine if this shit goes bad? I mean, seriously, like I cannot even believe we are still talking about we don't know what he is being
Yeah,
a
we know what he
Cleveland
is.
Brown. Well, I think we do. Listen, we hope he has luck, but I'm having a
I
hard
don't.
time.
12 games as a Cleveland Brown, 14 touchdowns, 9 picks.
Well, I'm
He's
having a hard
completing.
time,
He's completing less than 60% of his passes
Jason. I'm having a
as a
hard
Cleveland
time
Brown.
believing he's going to be the guy he was in 2018 when he was so dynamic, and they were like, "Oh, this is the next big thing." It's hard for me to believe that he's going
That's
to be that.
over.
All
That's
right,
over.
we got to talk about the Sunday night game before we get out of here, just because I think it's an intriguing game. We did talk a little bit about it. Rams Lions, just from a spread perspective, 3.5. Detroit over unders 50.5. You said you like this to be a high scoring game. You think?
I do. I do. Yeah, I mean, this was a 24-23 game when they met in the playoffs, but the playoffs are different. Playoffs are officiated a little differently. Like, everybody's a little tighter. It was the first time Stafford went back to Detroit. Right now, he's got that out of his system. But, like, if you go back and rewatch that game, like, everybody shined. I mean, Stafford, 25 of 36 for 367. Goff, 22 of 27 for 277. Like, neither of them threw a pick. Like, Puka Nakua, 9 catches on 10 targets for 181 yards. Amon St. Brown, 7 on 9 for 110. Like, they didn't run as much as I thought they would, the Rams, and it's tough to run against Detroit. But, like, Kyron Williams, 4.7 a carry. Like, you'll take that. Like, I mean, I don't know, man. Matt Stafford from week 10 on, 18 touchdowns, 4 picks, 283 passing yards a game, a 107 quarterback rating. Like, there's trends to the over for both these teams. Detroit 6-2 to the over at home last year. The Rams 6-3 to the over on the road. And they were over by a lot. Like, Lions games at home went over on average by 5.25 points. Rams games on the road went over on average by 4.72 points. So Vegas was way off. That's where I am on this game. I think both teams will show up in prime time. I think both defenses are good, but this is a tough week 1 task, right? It's going to be a perfect day to pitch and catch. Like, it's just because it's in Detroit in that dome. I think this game is more like, 31-30 than it is 24-23.
I'm with you. I agree. And both of these offenses, listen, Rams are not a sleeper, guys. What they did last year, coming back this year,
Rams are legit.
They're legit. I'm just telling you, like, last year was like, oh, what are they going to do? And they're rebuilding, and they got all these young guys on the defense. They're going to be fine. I'm with you. I like a high-scoring game in this one. Jason, I'm looking forward to week 1. By the way, follow Jason, follow us, follow Baldy, follow me, follow this podcast at In the Huddle, and make sure you subscribe, like us, tell your friends about it. Follow Jason as well. Check him out. He writes for the Washington Post as well and does a terrific job. He's got stories all throughout the course of the NFL season that you can only get from him and only read in the Washington Post. But I'm looking forward to week 1, man, and looking forward to how this week plays out. We're back at it next week. We'll be recapping early in the week, Tuesday, talking about what happens Monday night. By the way, that's Jets 49ers. Let's just knock wood and hope Aaron Rodgers plays a game, okay?
Carl, is there any part of you that thinks on Tuesday when we reconvene, Baldy is still in a hotel room in Brazil and he's in the process of securing some oceanside property, just a little shack with a hammock and maybe a little fire pit to cook. Like, is there any part of you that thinks as long as he's got an internet connection, he might, like Baldy might just say, this is it. I can do all my breakdowns. NFL Network. I got a little backdrop. What's a better backdrop for Baldy than people surfing and running around on the beach behind him?
No,
I think there is a more than 0% chance that he just says, this. You want Baldy? You got to come to Brazil. I found my home.
Yeah, Baldy, you missed your flight. Yes, I'm never coming back. Yes,
Yeah,
I'm with you, man. We will see.
Just saying.
On Tuesday, we will see. Hey, enjoy the NFL, guys. It's back. Thanks for being here. We will talk to you guys next week.